Step 1, wake up, really gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Crypto, where we turn your early hours in the morning into your edge of financial freedom. Today, I've got the headline about Jerome Powell. You know, it's the big news of the day. And the big news of yesterday. We got some big moves off of his speech yesterday. And I kind of wanted to break some of that down because I think there was a bit of FUD in some of his speech, and people reacted in some emotional ways on some of the news, especially when it's not as impactful to crypto as people really think it is. But let's dive on in and get you prepped for some success before we get to that. I do have the stock heat map pulled up. As you can kind of see, we got a lot of down moves in TradFi as well as crypto. There is one sector that did very nicely yesterday despite the news, and that was health services. United Health Services did pretty nicely. It was up almost 3% from yesterday, up 2.92. But we did have Apple sitting down at 2.14, and the pre-market is continuing on those losses. It is down 0.19 right now. We do have Nvidia, which was down quite a bit, down 1.14, but in the pre-market is taking back all of those losses and some, sitting up 2.16 right now. We do have Berkshire Hathaway, who is also down big, down 1.99%, and in the pre-market taking back some of those gains as well, up 0.54%. We did have Amazon, who is also another big loser, down 4.6% in the pre-market, taking back some of those losses, up 1.1% right now. We do have Eli Lilly, who is sitting down as well, down 1.79% from yesterday, and continuing on those losses in the pre-market, down 0.31%. ExxonMobil, also another loser, in our oil sector, was sitting down at 1.47, and in the pre-market doing a little bit nicely, taking back a small portion of those losses, up 0.34%. We do have Tesla, who was a very big loser from yesterday, down 8.28%, but in the pre-market trying to take back some of those gains, sitting up 2.68%. I know a little bit earlier it was sitting up about 3%, so we'll see how much of those losses it can take back from yesterday. We do have Microsoft, who is also sitting down 3.76% in the pre-market, also doing its part to take back some of those losses, sitting up 0.86%. Google also sitting down 3.54%. Also doing the same in the pre-market, trying to take back some of those losses, up 0.84%. Meta is also sitting down. No surprise there either. 3.59% from yesterday in the pre-market, doing a little bit better to take back some of those gains, sitting up 1.31%. We do have crypto, who is also recovering quite nicely this morning. Bitcoin is sitting up 2.02%. We've got Ethereum sitting up 1.96%. XRP doing quite nicely in its recovery, sitting up 4.05%. We've got BNB sitting up 2.44. Solana sitting up 1.61. We've got Toncoin, who's lagging behind just a little bit, down 0.07%. We've got Shiba Inu doing nicely to take back some of those losses, up 1.31%. Chainlink is sitting up 1.65%. We've got Avalanche up 0.61%. Tron Coin is sitting up 2.85%. And we've got Dogecoin sitting up 1.82. Cardano is also doing its part, sitting right below that dollar mark, but up 1.34% right now. HBAR is also doing nicely. I had taken a look at that yesterday. It is taking back some of those gains a little bit faster than some of these other projects, up 7.37% right now. Sui was another one I had taken a look at, and it is taking back some of those gains those losses a little bit quicker as well, sitting up 4.22% right now. Let's hop over to the economic calendar. We do have some news coming out of Europe this morning. They had an interest rate decision as well. Theirs was very similar to Japan, and they held no interest rate change. They are sitting at 4.75%. Not a big market mover, but something to keep in mind for things. Their inflation rate has been ticking towards that negative below 2% that Canada saw from earlier in this week. So we can get there on our interest rates. They went through the same thing that we've been going through, and where your inflation rate ticked back up a little bit during your cutting cycle. We're just going to have to see where things lie as we get more data. You do have the US coming out with GDP growth today. That's going to be quarter over quarter, coming out at 8:30 Eastern time. You also have continuing jobless claims. Won't be as heavy as that GDP data. And you also have initial jobless claims coming out at the same time as well. You will have the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index coming out same time. So kind of a heavy data drop coming out this morning at 8:30. A little bit later in the day, you do have some more home data to continue on what we got from the other day. These will be existing home sales, whereas in yesterday we got new home sales. So just another thing to keep your eye out, because all of this data combined will kind of let us know how sticky inflation really is in the current time frame. And I think things might be a little bit stickier than people really want to see. I know Jerome Powell touched on that in his speech yesterday, just a little bit. So we'll kind of have to see how sticky things really are for inflation going into next year, as we get new policy changes, as we get more tariffs on countries, as we kind of see where this Bitcoin reserve for the U.S. government lies. I know Jerome Powell touched on some of that in his speech, but he was talking about the Federal Reserve, and we'll have to break that down here in a little bit. We do have some more data coming out a little bit later in the day with the inflation rate year over year and month over month for Japan. This will be at 6:30 Eastern time tonight. So that will be the other big data for the day. Let's hop over to those fear and greeds and the liquidation heat map real quick. Something I like to see. Here's the stock market sitting in 29 in fear off of 5% dips in the stock market. And crypto dropped some of the same. We got those 5% to 8% dips. If you look at Tesla, that was down 8%. They are a lot more scared about things than crypto is, because if you hop over to crypto, we're still sitting in greed. So we're definitely loving a little bit of that volatility, and it doesn't scare the crypto market as much. We are down 6 points back into greed. So something that we've been wanting to see, a little bit of a cool off so that we could have some more room to run. The stock market has been doing very well this past year, making higher highs and higher lows on a lot of your indices, and those got hit hard yesterday, and that scared a lot of people. So definitely something I like to see. I do dabble in both of the TradFi world and the crypto world, and I like the crypto world a little bit better. They're a little less scared about things. They're like, hold on, we're down 8%. Let's click that buy button. Whereas in the stock market, they were like, oh, we're down 8%. Everybody panic. So let's hop over to that liquidation heat map real quick. As you can see, with the move up this morning, we've been trying to clear out some of the liquidity that was sitting to the top side of us. When we moved on down, we created some liquidity sitting at that $102,000 range, almost 103 to the top side of that. And we have cleared out half of that liquidity. We do have some more sitting to the top side of us at about 106,000. That was that big point back here where if you had some conviction and you thought things were going down, was a decent little shorting point, especially with the data. Everyone was decently bullish off of it. I kind of had some expectations that we would make a little bit of a move to the upside before kind of moving in a direction, because I talked about all the TradFi going down, but we didn't really get that move to the upside. It was just straight candles down. I was a little bit disappointed in that. I like to fake out moves to the direction opposing what the real market sentiment is, but didn't really get that yesterday. We do have a hot spot sitting to the bottom side of us at about 98,625, and that was that bouncing point that we saw from last night. If we zoom it on out to that 3-day, kind of get a better range of what the rest of the week could possibly look like, we've got a few hot spots to the top side of us. We've got a little range sitting about 105,000 and going up to about 105, 900 there. So a little bit of liquidity stacking up here in this range, and to the real top side of us, about 108,000 from the real top side of things before we started moving down. We've got a lot of liquidity piling up. If you zoom it on out a little bit more to take a look at that 2-week, you can kind of see the liquidity to the bottom side of us that I had talked about. Wasn't very heavy, but just some light liquidity to the bottom side of us really got taken out. We had a little hot spot down here at 100,000. We had another slight hot spot down here at 98,900, and we took out all of that on the move down. We also closed a fair value gap, and all of this is kind of healthy price action. It was a little bit scary for some people, especially if you were expecting the news to be extremely bullish, but a definite healthy market correction before we can continue to the upside. So let's hop into the chat real quick before we dive into that Bitcoin chart real quick. I see French Toaster in here. Good morning with the coffee cup. We've got Duality Crypto saying hello and waving. We've got Darren Does Things in here. Good morning, all. Buck's in here this morning as well. Good morning, Buck. I'm not sure how to say your name, but we have a hi, brother. Welcome back. Piper Academy gang. Can you check Doge USDT, which zone will be best for buy and sell? I will make a note of that and check on that here later after I hop through some of the things that I was wanting to look at. We've got French Toaster saying Chan the man. Good morning, French Toaster. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday so far, and we will dive more into some of these projects after I take a look at Bitcoin and hop into the news article and break down Jerome Powell's speech from yesterday, which was the big reason that we really dumped from the news yesterday. as you can kind of see here, we had a potential trend line from the bottom side of things. This is wick touches. I do different trend lines. I have trend lines that go off of candle bodies and trend lines that go off of wicks. Both of them are important and kind of signal where things could bounce sometimes. And I was waiting to see if this was an actual trend line. I hadn't had it drawn out because we had only had those two touches. Sometimes I will put those in the background and have them a dashed line. I didn't think that we would break down that low. I was hoping for a clear out of some of the liquidity to the bottom side here on our trend line from our broadening ascending wedge, and we broke below it. I hoped and was hoping that we could maintain some of this and kind of just move along our trend line, and that's not what happened. Let me hide our Fibonacci extension that I've had drawn out for a while and focus on the Fibonacci retracement. This is pulled back here from the low before the move up. So sitting at that 99,000 before we moved on up, and we are now sitting right below that golden pocket. What do you use the difference between wick and candle trend lines? So the wick trend lines kind of show where there's more volatility, whereas if you pulled through here, you could kind of get candle body touches, and these show more strong trend lines. So the strong trend lines will come on candle bodies, where we might see wicks below that, but the real candle body is going to be pulled right back to that trend line. As you can kind of see here, if you zoom on in a bit, we got wicks below our trend line from the candle bodies, and it held very nicely, where when we pull right back, it ends up creating that wick to the bottom side, but your candle body touches very nicely on those trend lines, and it kind of gauges where there's real strength on your price action. I can show you on other charts as well where it's pulled from candle bodies. It kind of gives you a little wiggle room to either side. Sometimes those candle body trend lines will get broken just a little bit, and those wick trend lines are a little less likely to get broken. So just to answer that question for you there, Buck, as we're sitting here on our, this is the 1 hour. Let me zoom it on out just a little bit to that 4 hour so you can kind of see here where our money flow is sitting on our 4 hour chart. We are just back into that red. Buck said, so could that be targeted for short-term scalps? It really just depends on what kind of time frame you're going to be sitting on. I focus more on the higher term time frames, like the 4 hour and the 1 hour. I'm better at swing trading than I am at scalping, unless I'm very sure that we're bumping up against a local support range, and then I might hop into a scalp. But it can be used on those shorter term time frames as well. This was originally drawn from a 15-minute, and that's where you can kind of see where some of those wicks come into play. So yes, it can be used for both of them. It'll be more so if you draw it on a higher term time frame. A lot of my trend lines are drawn from the 1 hour. So that's where if you have those 1 hours, if you bump it up on those 4 hours, you will see wicks that violate that trend line. And if you draw it from the wicks on the 4 hour, then you kind of get a better little range there of some wiggle room to the bottom side of a support line or the top side of a resistance line. Support and resistant lines aren't always an actual point of support and resistance. that's why I like to have both of those. It does give you a little bit of a range. If I had drawn that out from back here, I would have had and talked about it yesterday. It would have given you a nice little range here where if we did break to the bottom side of things, you wouldn't be as worried because we wicked kind of pretty much exactly off of that trend line. Wick, wick, and wick. It gives you that wiggle room down to things. So on this 4-hour chart, we are getting some reversal signals. I do think that we could start bumping up against this trend line again if we do see this rejection on our golden pocket here at 102,000. There was some more liquidity sitting to the bottom side of us that was stacking up from back here. That would be very easy to take. It will really just depend on how this money flow is going to come in. We do have that 99-200 range being a very nice bouncing point. You do have as well that 101 about 200 being another little bouncing point that we could see if we are able to maintain this golden pocket zone and not lose that platinum pocket. That'll really just depend on what kind of liquidity we're seeing on the shorter term time frames. As you can kind of see here, your money flow for your 1 hour isn't heavy selling, so it's kind of nice to see that the price moves up while we're in that selling zone, but we haven't seen the heavy selling like we did back here on the move down. So just a nice little signal that on some higher term time frames we might be seeing the real reversal signal that this was a bottoming point. If you zoom it on in just a little bit more, take a look at that 15 minutes so we can kind of see where the morning lies. We are getting heavy green liquidity coming in here to buy things up. We do have some reversal signals that are stacking up. This is also a point where we could start making some divergences if we end up breaking back into our golden pocket, because this was also a fair value gap from the move to the downside. I don't have that drawn out just yet. It was something I was going to do this morning, but there was a lot to look at all over the markets because everything moved to the downside. You are seeing that 15-minute show some signs that this is some local topping right here at that golden pocket, and we might, if we are able to maintain this, come back down to our platinum pocket there at about 101, 200 for the morning before we try to continue that move to the upside. There is that fair value gap, which starts all the way up here at about 104,200, which was a nice point that we talked about in the Discord last night. I know, I believe it was Buck that brought that up from yesterday, where he had a little entry, and that's a point we could really come back to. That is the top side of that fair value gap. And we do have that middle range sitting right above us on that golden pocket at about 103,000. So a few upside targets there being that 103,000 to the 104,200 range. If this is the bottom and we do continue that trend and get that bounce off of the platinum pocket at 101,200. I do see the chat saying some things. Let's scroll back up just a little bit. We have all set in here this morning. Good morning, good morning. We have Museum of Corruption dropping the coffee cup. Good morning, Museum of Corruption. We've got again, I don't know how to say your name, but brother, BTC will down to 92K or up to 102K. Yep, and that's kind of what I've been looking at. So we've got that 102,500, which we've been bouncing up against right at that golden pocket. And if we are able to maintain the gold pocket by holding that 101,000, then I do see us going back up a little bit. If we are unable to maintain all of this, we do have a lot of negative space on the chart here where we can drop all the way down. I was looking at potentially that 1618 on the fib retracement, which was sitting at about 93,500 if we were unable to really maintain this range. I do see the market being a little bit bullish right now, so that's why I didn't really talk about those massive downside targets right now, and I'm looking to see for today what we can kind of hold. If we do end up not holding some of this range, then we will talk about some of those further downside targets that we really have down there, because there is a bit of negative space here. You do have a small fair value gap here at about 196,000 all the way up to 97,000, which can get filled as well. And we did fill this fair value gap from back here as well, and that's kind of where I wasn't wanting to see things. We ended up leaving the bottom side of that fair value gap completely open, and that's right where we kind of wicked down to, and that's right in line with that trend line. Let's see, we've got Jesse Gulek saying, have slept 7 hours now. Well, that's a nice one. You got more sleep than I did. I didn't go to sleep until about 9:30 last night, and I was up at about 4. So I don't get much sleep. It's extra fun. That's why I like the coffee. Got last night on Nightcap, FD was thinking, why are talking about crypto when the chat is talking nonstop about ribs and other foods? See, and that right there is what I'm having for Christmas dinner. I make some mean ribs. I'm going to be slow cooking those for Christmas. Probably going to start somewhere around about 9 a.m. and we'll have those for dinner time. And I'm doing a nice slow cook on those with some brown sugar. And oh, I'm so ready for ribs on Christmas. It is one of my more favorite ones. I go with that southern cook on it. So we get the brown sugar rub, a little bit of spices in there, like some cayenne pepper, a little bit of garlic, some salt, some you can't talk about you can't miss out on the pepper, but you got your full seasonings and it comes out so nice. Yeah, Buck, I'm definitely talking about ribs now, because I'm a man that loves my meats, and it's going to be a problem for me on Christmas. We're cooking 2 full racks of ribs, and there's only 3 people going to be eating them, so I might be having ribs for a few days. Buck said, that's just mean, talking about your ribs during his stream, dinner time, and black dude trying to work. Hey, you got me off track here this morning. If you talk about meats, I'm gonna talk about meat, because I love meat. I made some pork chops last night with some brown sugar and some honey and some cayenne pepper and a little bit of garlic, and it was so good. Yeah, I'm big on my meats. But let's hop into this news article real quick before y'all get me too off track on this. Username talk about a rack of lamb. Gosh, dang it, sir. You're going to get me off track, and the rest of the show is just going to be about meat if you don't stop it. All right, we have this news headline coming out. BTC rebounds after Fed-fueled sell-off knocks prices 100,000 back in play. Surprisingly, quick recovery. Bitcoin advanced Thursday morning after bargain-hungry traders scooped it up below 100,000. Bitcoin prices rebounded from their Wednesday low of 98,500, reclaiming the $100,000 mark and even pushing it to an early session high of 101,700. The OG cryptocurrency got slammed yesterday by the Federal Reserve's 2025 forecast, which poured cold water on the global markets from stock to gold to digital assets. Bitcoin lost 6%, with prices sliding from 106,000 a pop. A surprise upswing comes after the Fed said it plans to trim interest rates only twice next year, revising its prior projection of 4 cuts. The guidance spoiled an otherwise good session and followed after the Fed cut interest rates by another quarter point as expected. From September, which officials kicked off their rate cutting campaign, interest rates have gone down by a full percentage point. And this is something that they had talked about at the beginning of the session, that they would like to cut things by a full percentage point by the end of the year. And guess what? The market still wasn't happy with it. When the market wants something and the market gets something, they are never happy with it, and they always have other plans in mind. And this is why they should just be doing what they think is correct, and they should have been going slow instead of cutting that 50%, that 50 basis points at the beginning, and then doing a quarter point cut and a quarter point cut. Because if the trend does continue and they keep giving the market what they want, that beginning of the year, if we're going to have to try to compete with a Japan rate hike, then we're going to have to cut in March again, which is kind of not what you want to see for things, especially when we're starting to overheat. And that's something that is definitely on the mind of Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell talked about us having to slow down on some of this cutting before we even cut interest rates this time. And I wish he had held with what his consensus was, that he would have slowed down on some of it, taken some time to let the cuts that he's already done go into effect, because you normally don't start seeing the effects of these cuts for about 6 months. And I know they play off of market sentiment sometimes, but a lot of these investors are going to invest either way. They might invest a little more slowly, and that's something that's healthy for the markets. You know, you don't always want just continuous money dumped in, continuous money dumped in. You need that money to move around from one sector to another sector. You need your bonds to be strong sometimes. You need your stock market to be strong other times. You need your labor market to be strong at other times. It's a nice balance, and they haven't really been balancing things in quite the way I've been wanting to see. And like Piper, I've been concerned since they did that 50-point basis cut, because I thought things were going to be heading in the wrong direction extremely quickly, and that's what we're bumping up against right now. You did have Jerome Powell talking about how the Federal Reserve cannot hold any Bitcoin. It is not looking to change any of that. Well, guess what? The Federal Reserve is not part of the federal government. So that's not a very scary headline to me. They are a private organization that is separate from the federal government. They work lock hand with the federal government, but they are not a federal agency in the slightest. They are a private agency that works with the U.S. government. And them not holding Bitcoin has no concern to me. I would rather the U.S. government hold Bitcoin, and that's something that Donald Trump wants to do. And it has nothing to do with what the Fed says. The Fed is a bank, and is not something that they deal with the money, and that them holding Bitcoin or not holding Bitcoin plays no concern on how they're going to put money into the system. They're going to do the same thing to make their money and continue working lockstep with the government, whether they hold Bitcoin or not. So it's not that scary that he says that they're not going to hold Bitcoin to me. Powell also touched on a bit of what Donald Trump's new policies are going to do. He said that we really can't make decisions right now on what direction things are going to head off of new economic policy, and that they're not going to try to move things before we get those policies. That is not the move that you want to see from your Fed. So I do find that as reassuring that he wants to wait to see how the market is impacted by new policies where we have tariffs and things like that that will be coming into effect, and that they're going to be watching these things closely. So instead of being preemptive, they will react to the market as things come along. My eyes are all on Japan's interest rate decision coming in March, which is widely predicted to be that rate hike. And if you want to see the dollar maintain some of its strength that it saw from yesterday and is looking to turn some of those levels I had talked about into as resistance into some support, then you're going to need to negate some of the rate decisions that Japan's going to do. We do have the chat still talking about meat. I see some talk about duck in here, which is extra greasy. I don't know why anyone. I mean, like, it's all right sometimes if you like use it to shove it into another meat, like a turkey, and it adds some flavor to a turkey. I do see quail. Quail's delicious. I do like a good quail egg. Oh my God, you guys are going to get me in trouble. I'm not going to talk about any crypto if you guys keep talking about meat. Let's see. We have a username saying, BC, you buy near dip. I did not. I bought my favorite alt, which is injective. I like to stack my injective, and it's quite a nice level that we got down to. I did take a look at some of the TradFi and was looking at QUBT like you had said to, and I might be making a purchase here in the morning. So BC slow and low. Are you membrane on or off, and do you wrap? I am membrane on. I like to keep some of those juices in there. If I'm smoking it, then membrane off so that you can really get that full flavor in your meat. But if I'm going in the oven, then you keep that membrane on so that you can keep some of those juices in there a little bit better. I do wrap in aluminum foil, and I keep it at a very low temp so that it can cook all day, and that brown sugar really keeps things moist in there and really flavorful, and you don't really have to baste it any. And that's part of my favorite thing is that you do that brown sugar, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of cayenne pepper, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and it depends on how spicy you want things. I'm a spice guy, so I use a little bit extra of that cayenne pepper, and you cook it for about 4 to 6 hours at some low heat, and you got that meat falling off the bone. Just so good. Fried pork chops. I'm not big on fried food. I bake or slow cook most things, or smoke. So if anyone had any other project they'd like me to take a look at besides Doge, definitely drop those in the chat for me. Otherwise, we're going to talk about slow cooking meats the rest of the show. I do have some of the TradFi projects that I had wanted to take a look at. We hit right at a bunch of the levels that I was looking at yesterday. We had the NASDAQ sitting right at that point where I had talked about maybe in a few days we might see. We ended up getting it all at once as the market did not find any of the rate cuts being bullish. We got a fake move to the upside and then dropped off very quickly. I had talked about that 19,340 range, which is right where we wicked to, and we closed a CME gap on the NASDAQ. We broke outside of the range very quickly of our Fibonacci extension, and we are now sitting where we need to draw a Fibonacci retracement. And if you pull it up, we are bumping right against the same point that Bitcoin was, and we're sitting right below that golden pocket. And you are seeing a lot of your assets doing this. I see Crypto Billy in the chat with the eyeballs. Did you hop in right when I was talking about cooking meats? He's like, what's going on in this chat? Yeah, we're a little bit of some degens here, and we like our projects. We like making money, and we like good meats. You do have your S&P, which is sitting right at that point too. We ended up closing a CME gap from back here, and we are bumping right up against the bottom side of our Fibonacci extension and the CME gap from back here in November. It was a big CME gap, and there's plenty of room still to the downside. You do have money flow, which is just light outflows. Your MACD line just crossed a bunch of the zero lines on a bunch of these assets, as you can kind of see on the higher term time frame. The shorter term time frame, we are already below that zero line and made a lot of space from that indicator line. You do have some oversold signals here on your 1 hour, but your money flow is nice and red, and there's still more room to run to the downside as you aren't seeing any reversal signals coming out. You might see a small little bounce for the morning, but I think some of these assets are going to want to play on some of your CME gaps. You do have for the S&P 500, 5,823 being another little point where we could make a little bouncing that is below the bottom side of our Fibonacci extension, and seeing the S&P break below that as well could definitely be a move to see, especially when the rest of these assets have already done that. You have your Dow Jones also broke below things and sitting right here in our CME gap all the way back from November as well, beginning of November. And we're looking to kind of close that. We've got plenty of room to go to the downside. The MACD crossed your indicator line on the bottom side of things. You do have some oversold signals here on your prime oscillator, but money flow is just ticking red. So plenty of room to really close that, which the bottom side is going to be 42,215 before we could really start looking at some bouncing points. You do have decent ranges right below that at 42,100, where you saw a lot of moves to the top and bottom of before we really created that CME gap as well. If we are unable to maintain that, you do have a fair value gap, which is sitting right below it, starting at $42,070 and ends all the way down here at 41,800. So definitely a little bouncing point we could see there at about 41,962, which is the midline of that. So few little bouncing points there. I would look at the CME gap finally being closed. You have your Russell 2000, which got some heavy moves to the downside. We ended up closing all CME gaps that we have had in our recent time frames, And that is a nice, healthy move to see. You did start seeing some pulling up from the Russell as well. And we were sitting right above a nice little line here on our 382. I would look at the 382 being hit though. You do have money flow, which is nice and red on that 1 hour. Hold on, let me get a drink of water real quick. You do have that money flow, which is sitting nice and red on that 1 hour chart. And definitely could be dragging things down just a little bit more to turn this 382 into some support again before we really try to make a run up against our 50% line and potentially back up to this resistance line that I've had drawn out for quite a while now. This is pulled from July. It negates the wicks here. It goes off of the candle bodies and it touches very nicely all the way up to here. We got some candle bodies here that got a nice touch, and our candle bodies here broke through it just a little bit, but it ended up being resistance as well before we really dropped on down. So I really want to see this 382 turned into some support here before we continue this move to the upside. You will see a lot of these CME gaps come back into play here, especially since these were all ranges that were left open for a while and untested, and leave some decent buying points here. If you've got the bounce here at 2,200, then we get that move to the upside here. You've got 2,260, which might be a little resistance point before we continue that trend to the upside. We've got another resistance point at about 2,281. Let's hop over to gold real quick before we move into Doge. And I saw Sol is a slow cooker. I thought Sol was requested. Sol keeps cooking down. I can take a look at Sol here. We've got Jay Violet in the chat. Good morning, Jay Violet. We've got Bob Lornis as well. Is ETH cooking up or down? We can take a look at ETH as well. Buck, of course, we need a food crypto show. Well, maybe one of these days I can do a food and crypto show on a weekend, and we can prepare some food while we talk crypto, because I can cook some decent food here. It might take a little while though. I like to season my meats and let them sit in the fridge for a little while and marinate. Jay Violet said, "Oh no, here we go talking about food again." Well, men like their meat. So yeah, sometimes if you get us off track, we will talk about meat for a while. And everyone has their own little methods on it. Let's hop over to gold real quick before we hop into some of these assets that we'd like to take a look at. I had Doge and Sol requested. If anyone else has another asset they'd like me to take a look at, I can definitely take a look at those. I've got about, I guess 10 minutes, but I can run a little long if anyone had any other requests. Look at Dogeson. I will put that on there. It'll have to just be a quick look. I've never looked at that before. All right, so we have gold bouncing off of our support line that has been in play for quite a while and is looking to push a little bit lower. We've got topping signals on our prime oscillator. Money flow's looking green, but is not able to maintain anything. You've got your MACD line as well, which is looking to cross things on the bottom side. You've got your indicator line, which is pointed up kind of nicely, but your MACD line is looking down to the downside. You've got plenty of room to move down here, and looking at about 2,500 range to top side 2,560, And again, you've got another little bouncing point here where 2,576. Those are a few little bouncing points we could kind of see on gold if we end up breaking out of this range again, because we just rejected off of this support line here and are looking for more downside action. Let's hop over to Doge and Sol and Dogeson, if I'm saying that correctly. I'll have to pull that one up. We've got Sol here, which broke below the platinum pocket that I was really wanting to see, turned into some support, and moved it down extremely quickly. We do have this support line sitting right below us though, which could really bolster some prices. And you saw some decent buying pressure here at about $203. But as you can see on our 1 hour chart, you've got things looking like they might come down just a little bit further. Your prime oscillator is getting some nice curvature on your 1 hour. Your money flow is starting to tick back into that outflows kind of heavily. That red is ticking right back up. Your MACD is looking to cross that indicator line on the bottom side of things. So seeing us pull back down to this support line that I've had drawn out would be a nice little move to kind of get a bounce off of. You do have that being about 190 to about 195, depending on where we want to, how long we're going to take to get there. If you zoom it on in just a little bit to that 15-minute, you can kind of see here your money flow is a little bit green, but it's not able to hold up price very well. You are breaking below some of these lows that we made here, and they're pretty equal lows, so we might come down here and swoop some of these prices up before we really get that bounce up. Your MACD just broke below that zero line on your 15-minute and are looking to really cool things down on price action before we really get that bounce back up to our platinum pocket and $216. The whole market's been cooling down right now as we've been in a massively bullish trend, and to see some of these retracements is a healthy move to see. So just waiting to see what that bouncing point is. I'm looking at that trend line down here. We do have Doge requested as well. I don't look at Doge very often, so let's kind of take a look here. We're sitting below the Fibonacci retracement that I've had drawn out for quite a while here. Let's zoom it on out to our 4 hour chart and kind of see where we're sitting here. Got money flow just ticking to the red on the 4 hour, but you are starting to see some reversal signals. Your MACD looks like it has a little more room to run to the downside though before we really see that bouncing point. You do have heavy buying pressure sitting below us at 35.8 on Doge. So plenty of room to start sweeping, to start buying that back up once we drop down to that 35-cent range again. As you can see here, we got a bounce off of it, off of this candle, and everything below it was bought up extremely quickly. Let's zoom it on into that 1 hour and kind of get a look there. You can kind of see here, money flow still sitting red on your 1 hour. You're getting that MACD looking like it wants to curve back down on things as well. And your prime oscillator is getting some slight curvature here. So a little more downside on crypto might be heading our way on Doge as well. Let's kind of pull up to see where we might see on some of these other bouncing points. You are sitting right above that 382 there. If we end up losing that, coming all the way back down to 35-cent range is probably going to be the move to look at. Seeing the top side being that 35.966, where we we're bumping up against right now, and that bottom side being 35 at 270, we started seeing a lot of that buying pressure come into play. Let's hop over and look at Dogeson. I don't know why my Alexa's doing that. All right. Alexa. Alexa, shut up. God, I don't know why she does that sometimes. Nobody said anything about it. All right, Dogeson. And we'll look at it on, I guess, just the trading view. Oh, I guess that was the wrong one. Dogeson. I'm not seeing it on here. I'm not seeing it there. So, if you could let me know where I can find it, I will take a look at it, but I'm not seeing it on here. So if there is any other assets you'd like me to take a look at, they gave it a female name for a reason, BC. Yeah. She's annoying sometimes. She sits right there on my desk, and I'm like not talking to her at all. Don't say her name. And then she'll randomly just be like, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, what are you doing? I never said the trigger word. Do not start talking to me right now. I don't know. Mark Dutch says it's a poop coin. Jesse loves those. Well, the poop coin is not on the trading views, so if you can let me know how to look at it, I could pull up, let's see, could pull up coin to market cap. Oh, yep. I hit the M button when I typed out coin market cap. So, sorry about that. M is my mute button. So, yep. Dogeson did a nice little move to the upside, but it's really hard to do TA on it when it's sitting on coin market cap and I don't really have any candles on it. So, you'll have fun with your poop coins there, sir, and make your money. I will just continue to trade on Bitcoin. I don't have any other requests that I saw, so I will end up winding the show down. Thanks for all the talks about good meats today. I really enjoyed it. You got me on a whole spiel there. And you got to hear a little bit about my southern cooking. So I hope y'all enjoyed that. If you need any recipes for meat, just shoot me, just hit me in the Discord. Oh, there's Mark Dutch there. We're join the Piper Academy Discord if you need any of those recipes or you liked some of the recipes that I was talking about. Just shoot me a message there and I can definitely drop that recipe for you. I know it's not crypto related, but I make a mean rib if you need a nice rub. Other than that, make sure to check out Piper and OC Guy at 9:30 Eastern Time with the morning market report. We do have the last crypto nightcap and markets after dark coming on today. That will be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for crypto nightcap and 11 p.m. Eastern Time for the markets after dark. If y'all haven't tuned in and checked out to get some of that TA information y'all are needing for your charts, check out at 4 Eastern Time Trade Intuition with Trade Academy. He does an amazing job with TA, and he has some amazing things that he does with the charts that even fascinates me and teaches me sometimes a different way to look at the chart. So everyone wake up, because today's gonna be a good day, and I will see y'all in the Alex O Crypto Chat.